Hello and welcome to A Wealthy Life. My name's Vicky Washay, and this week I'm going to be exploring the idea of what's more important to you, time or money. I can tell you as a fact, actually it's an unverified gut feeling really, but I know I'm right, that time is more important to you the older you get. Maybe because you're older, you almost have everything that you need. And maybe you're in that place now, not that you're old. I'm not saying that about you. Oh my goodness, I should rewind and start this all over again because I've just insulted you and laid out unverifiable facts. But let's just go with it. There's an easy way to tell, right? And this isn't to do with age. Imagine it's your birthday and I asked you what you want. Think of three things now. Quick. What can you think of? And that will depend on your life. It might depend on your age. It could depend on the availability of cash in your life. And the answers that you come up with will actually tell you what you value. So, for example, if you listed three items that you wanted me to buy for you and they were tangible products rather than experiences, that's one answer. What if all that you asked for were experiences? I'd like to go out for a meal, or I'd like to go horse riding, or I'd like to go and visit somewhere. Maybe you can't think of things even for yourself. Maybe you're thinking of things for your family. I asked you, what do you want for your birthday? And you went, a new Hoover, which is probably the most boring birthday present ever. But, you don't need stuff in your life. And really, you've got quite a few experiences tucked away and planned for the rest of this year. But just give us a Hoover then. It's about, what if you can't even think of anything that you want? No products, no experiences, nothing really for anybody else, because you have it all, really. And I bet that you'll fit in there somewhere. You'll fit in with either products, experiences, things for other people, or of course, the only thing left is that you can't think of anything. But if you're still buying stuff, and maybe you're younger, or you're more recently split up and you're on your own, then you need stuff in your life, and that's perfectly fine. If you're thinking of experiences, maybe you have enough stuff in your life and now memories and experiences have more value for you because you got all the gadgets that you need. So you want to spend your time in a way that reflects your values. If your list was about buying things for other people, then you're probably a parent, although a few experiences will probably creep in there. Maybe it's about having a break from the kids and you certainly deserve that. That can be something that you can look at. So what you're buying is a reflection of what you value. And that's really important. And if we then break down what you would want for your birthday present into either tangible stuff or experiences, then that might also reflect whether time or money was more important to you now. Because if you've still got a list of stuff that you want to buy, then you're still in a position where you've either got money or need money to buy those things. Because if you had all the money you needed, you'd have bought them all already, and therefore you wouldn't still want more stuff. If you're asking for experiences, then the chances are you've passed that point and actually time is more important to you. You don't need more stuff in your life because you've got plenty of money and you've bought the stuff you need. So now time is more important to you. And with all the conversations that I've been having, what I really want to do is to spin it round so that wherever you are in your life, you're aware of the fact that time is always going to be more important for you sooner or later. And I'd like you to think about it being more important for you now before it becomes a necessity. So take it again with other people. Do you struggle to think of gifts for them? And it's not maybe because you're unimaginative, but maybe because it seems like they have everything. And so maybe the money that's needed for things isn't as important to them as the time needed to create memories and have experiences. And this is where the rub is. This is where the link between time and money is. It's a powerful opportunity for you to recognize your own personal values. And we could have done this another way round, where I could have sat you down and said, okay, write down a list of what really matters to you. And the more that I asked you questions and the more I saw what you wrote, the better I could get at questions to really push you down an alley where you would start coming up with priorities. And those priorities will be your values, and those values will influence everything in your life. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried explaining to a teenager or someone in their early 20s why they should save money rather than spend, it's a pretty thankless task. But I know from experience, the minute my daughter wanted something that was of value to her, she got herself a job, she got savings, and of course, with the help of a trusty spreadsheet, because I am her mother, she achieved the goal that she set out to achieve. And it was almost as if she was listening to the 4th podcast that I wrote about setting up your goals to win, falling in love with a spreadsheet. Of course, she was going to have to fall in love with a spreadsheet. I'm her mother. But here's another question for you. Would you lend me £100, please? Now, you might say yes, or you might say no. But theoretically, it's possible that you could lend me the money. Okay, I have a second question for you, and I guess you know where I'm going to head with this already. Could you please lend me 100 minutes? Now, this answer is not about whether you would or you wouldn't. There is no way that you can lend me the time, even if you want to. How are you going to give me 100 minutes? Because we are all bound by this same concept of time. Whatever time zone you live in, we all have collectively on this entire planet, for whatever reason, agreed that there are we know why there's this one, 365 days in the year, and that's because that's how long it takes the Earth to circumvent the sun. And we also know why there are approximately 24 hours in a day, and that's to do with night and the sun and rising. But the point is, we've all bought into this idea of time, and we are all living exactly the same time. Wherever you are right now, you are living in the same moment that I am, wherever I am right now. And sometimes we experience time differently. Sometimes it seems to go fast. This year seems to have gone really fast. Sometimes weeks or days will go really fast. And other times you'll feel that they go slowly. You know, that year dragged. But actually, that's just an illusion. That's our experience, our relationship, our engagement with the concept of what's going on in our lives at the time. You can't give me any of that. So if the year had gone slowly, it's not like we've got to sort of December and all of a sudden there are 3 months left because it had gone really slowly. Or if it had speeded up, it's not like all of a sudden we're in July and it's the end of the year. It doesn't happen like that. And this podcast is a perfect metaphor. So I have recorded this podcast. I have given it to the producer to edit and to publish. And I did that in your past. It was a post we both shared. And while I was recording the podcast, you were doing something else. And now you're listening to the podcast in my future. I'm doing something else. But we're both sharing the same moment. And I love, if you like, that magic of time, that here we are sharing this conversation, but this is my past and this is your future. I can't lend you time. You can't lend me time. And therefore, and here comes my statement, on that basis, time has to be more valuable, more precious than money, than metals, than gems. It has to be, because we can't give it to one another. It has to be. It's finite, it's irreplaceable, it's unique. And all of those attributes make it an item that should be highly valued. And I have a tendency to argue in favor of my perspective, and I know that. And I'm not trying to convince you to my way of thinking, although I am probably, but I'm not really. It's the challenge that this is a one-way conversation, but it is a conversation. You'll just have to email me back your point of view, and then, you know, I can carry on having that conversation with you. I just want to explain my thinking and how I came to this point of view, and what I see as the implications of this. And as a way of explaining time having a value, back in 2018, 2019, I started a talk called Mortality Moments. And I wonder if you've ever had one of these. It's that moment in your life when an incident happens and maybe your life flashes before your eyes. It could be some form of near miss that you have, a narrowly avoided accident, or that a loved one has. It could be the moment that you are unfortunately involved in either a bad accident, or you maybe have an illness, and suddenly the mortality moment sneaks up on you and you go, oh my goodness, I'm not immortal. And it shocks you in such a way that it makes you start to rethink this idea of this relationship of time and what's actually important to you. And I've had many of those in my life, which is how I know that I have come to value time much more than I value money, because I know that I can always make money. And more importantly, I know that I can borrow money if I need it. But I only have the amount of time I have, and I need to make the best use of that possible. And for me, there have been times, I mean, particularly last year, where the best use of my time was focusing on helping my clients, whether they were investing in properties or I was helping them with their strategic plans. And that was making money for me, for us, for our family, because we had plans that we wanted to do a development. And so bringing more money into the family would help us have a bigger or better development than what we wanted to have. But equally, when my first granddaughter was born, I knew that I wanted to spend one day a week with her. So I would now find a way that I could spend a day of the week with her and condense all that I wanted to earn, whatever that was, whether it's more or less or anything, that's not really the point, but condense my earnings into just 4 days so that I could have a day off a week to be with her. And a perfect example maybe for you is in early lockdown. It was a bit like the script of a really bad Hollywood movie coming to life. The movie Contagion with Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon. It was 2011. And we watched that film and you could see the dots starting to spread over the globe as the, whatever hers was, I think it was a bat that infected a pig, that infected a man, that infected her, or something to that effect. As the pandemic started to roll out, the dots spread. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't sure whether what we were going through in 2020 was some version of some weird zombie apocalypse. And it caused me to really reevaluate what was important to me, even though this was something that I was already acutely aware of, because, as I said, I've already had my own share of mortality moments. So what were your thoughts? Were you maybe a little afraid, scared? Were you worried about family and friends? Maybe money, your job, your business? Were you worried about the health of certain relatives, maybe family members in other countries? Maybe you were stuck isolated from those that mattered to you most. My mother was locked in a care home. I had one daughter trapped abroad. I had a newly born grandson at home with his parents, locked in for 5 months before I could properly hold them. We've all got our stories, and really the detail is less important, especially as time passes. That's the wonderful thing about time, that things that are unpleasant can drift from our minds as long as we're prepared to let them. But it's about, what did you learn? What did you do differently? What are you doing differently now? And if you don't know your values, if you don't know what matters to you most, what gives you joy, purpose, peace of mind, maybe you like control, maybe you like freedom, then how can you create a plan to live a life that meets your needs, even though these are going to change over time? If you don't know what matters to you, how do you know what's going to make you happy? And if you don't know what's going to make you happy, how can you make a plan to make you happy? Or how can you be happy if you're just poodling through life hoping? I'd argue with you. I know I mustn't argue with you because you can't email and shout. Well, maybe you can shout at the podcast or clap or cheer if you agree with me. But I would argue that at that time, when we were at, like, probably at our lowest, no one was thinking about buying a new car or a new outfit. And as I refer back to the whole idea of unconscious consumerism, the adverts weren't here, buy this outfit because you need to go out and look good because we couldn't go out. But how many of us rushed out for toilet rolls because the media implied that there was going to be a shortage and a scarcity, and all of a sudden we were caught up in the fear and the craziness that was going on, and we went out and bought toilet rolls. And I'm sure that wasn't just me. I have seen plenty of Facebook and other photos to show that other people were doing it. Who would have thought that a toilet roll was so highly valued? It's a perfect example of the scarcity principle that I spoke about with Cialdini in that last. We were tricked into buying toilet rolls because we feared the scarcity of the toilet roll. Our panic was what drove us to the purchase. Obviously, duh. When I started working with a group of business owners in 2021, the first thing that we explored was the question that I asked you back in episode 3. What would you do if you did not have to work just to pay the bills? Because without this level of clarity, how can you possibly make a plan? And remember, this is our first go round. This is your first best guess. But if you didn't have to work, if you didn't have to spend your time going to your place, whether your place is upstairs in the back bedroom or in a corner of the dining room, or maybe you actually go to a physical location to work, if you didn't have to go to work, spend your time traveling, arrive there, spend a set period doing a specific job, if you didn't have to do that, what would you do with your time? Because it's when you can start thinking about that you can also think about what your priorities are. Remember, I've said to you before in previous episodes, this isn't about you having to give up work. This isn't about, shutting your business down or leaving your business or any of that, because it could be that actually your priorities, whether you have to work for money or you don't have to work for money, would still be the thing that you do. When I was a university lecturer, my dad used to joke with me, I'm going to give you £1 million. And I remember the first time the lottery came out. I'm so old sometimes, but when the lottery first came out, my dad said, I'm going to buy you a winning lottery ticket and give you £1 million. And I went, don't, you're going to ruin my life. What would I do with £1 million? And he went, well, you could buy anything you want. And you know what? At that moment in time, apart from maybe replacing my secondhand car for something more reliable, not that it had ever let me down, there wasn't really anything I wanted. I loved my job. I loved being a university lecturer. I loved working with the students. They kept me on my toes. They were fascinating. And I could see the light bulbs going off in their eyes when we discussed things. And I loved being creative about the way I talk. Why would I want to give that up? And so then as time moved on, my dad would always hand me a lottery ticket and go, here you are. This might ruin your life because this could be the winning ticket that meant that I'd have to rethink things. But when you rethink your priorities, it's not a negative experience. It can reinforce your actual experiences. Again, maybe it's just about making them conscious, because if you're not conscious of your values and you're not conscious of what's important to you, how do you know whether you're doing things that are taking you in the right decision? If I just think about those businesses back in January 2021, every one of the 12 of them was successful by all external measures. They all had businesses that were making great profit, great turnover. They employed teams, they had waiting lists of customers, decent profits. Out of the 12, 2 took just a couple of strategy sessions with me. So we talked through where they were, and they realized that they had the clarity to go off and make the next steps for themselves. And that's absolutely fine. Another 2 decided that expanding their business would give them the outcome that they were looking for. And so I worked with them to help them focus on that. But the remaining 8 all seemed to come to the same conclusion independently of one another. And that was that their time was more important. They already had more than enough money. They were growing their businesses anyway. And if they grew their businesses even more, that would require more of their time. And they didn't want to give more of their time to their businesses. They wanted to give more of their time to themselves, to their families, to their friends, to their interests. And so their epiphanies shaped their personal and business plans moving forward. And in fact, all 12 have now made plans based on the conscious awareness of their values. Some to stay in the business, some to grow the business, and some to make other plans that are going to help them, if you like, reduce the time that the business has so that they can spend more time doing other things. So where do you think you are with this question? Is time or money more important to you now, more valuable to you now? And if you think that you lack money or time, then, maybe you do. And maybe you need to look at that. Why do you lack money? Is it your spending habits? Why do you lack time? Do you work too hard? But frankly, you do have plenty of time and plenty of money. And I know that because you've got a place to call home and you've got shoes without holes in. And I know that's an assumption about you. But because you are someone listening to a podcast, I know that you have the money to buy a device on which to listen to a podcast. And therefore, you're not worried about putting a roof over your head, because if you were worried about a roof over your head or shoes on your feet, you wouldn't prioritize a device and your time to listen to podcasts. So it's a bit of a fulfilling prophecy again. So the question is not asked from a position of scarcity, but one of limited abundance, if you like. And I love an oxymoron. Okay, it's just, and I think limited abundance could be my new favorite. Remind me at some point to explain to you planned spontaneity and rigid flexibility. But this one, limited abundance, this is the premise that we really do have all the money and the time in the world that we need or that we want. The issue is simply of priorities, of resource allocation, if you like. And that's what this episode's building to you. If you don't understand what you value, how can you allocate your resources appropriately? And if you think you value money, then you will spend your time to earn it. And if you value time, you will spend some of your time to work out how you don't have to work to earn money, that you can do other things. And that's really the crux of it here. What do you need to spend your time on? Are you at that point in your life where you need to spend your time earning money, or want to spend your time earning money? Or are you now at that point where you want to spend your time working out how you can spend your time doing the things that you want to do? I'll get myself worked up into a frenzy again. So limited time in these podcasts so that they are bite-sized and listenable for you. And yet again, we run out. Did I allocate my resources of time appropriately? I hope you think so. I hope you also enjoyed this podcast and get a chance to gain insights into whether time or money is really more valuable to you. And once you make this decision, acknowledge this, then it's this realization that will help you be able to create a wealthy life that you want to live. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Please, I think you can even leave comments, but subscribe, like, share, rate, review, tick heart, and anything else that you think that you can do that is positive for the podcast and the videos, and weigh up the value of time versus the value of money in your life. So, a little bit of fertilizer on your thoughts. Do you struggle to think of presents that you really want or need? And what does that mean? How did your priorities change after that global mortality moment when we all came to realize in 2020 that there was a pandemic? And again, maybe in 2021 and 2022, what's important to you now as we move through these years? And the last thought for you, are you stuck in the illusion of limited abundance? Because really, you're not prioritizing what really matters to you. You have everything you need. It's just maybe in the wrong places. So listen along to the next podcast. And what we're going to do is be talking about the fact that I retired when I was 48 and how I managed to achieve that, and how maybe you can achieve that in your life. I really want to thank you as always for taking your precious time to listen to A Wealthy Life. My name's Vicky Wooshea, and I hope that this episode has brought you some much needed whoosh into your life.